Good afternoon, everybody. It's Max McAllister from Traxxion Dynamics here today, and I'm going to do another video on one of everybody's favorite topics, which is Honda Goldwing air filters. And I've done a lot of, let's call it empirical research, and I've seen a lot of Goldwings and seen a lot of air filters, and I just want to share some more of what I've learned over time with you. If you recall, I've done some videos on this topic, and I've showed you assortments of videos out of Goldwings of varying mileages, kilometers, depending on, well, for most of the world. And the truth is, after they get used, even briefly, they'll get a black film on top of them. Doesn't take long. And then your impression will be that your air filter is dirty and that somehow you're losing fuel economy and engine performance. I can say 100% factually that just isn't true. If you see this kind of dirt and stuff on your air filter, you will not have lost a half of a horsepower. Your bike will run exactly fine the way it was intended to. This isn't the kind of dirt and trouble that impacts the performance of the engine. So if you look at all these air filters that I have here as examples, they all basically look the same. But, you know, for example, this one in this photo has the recommended 16,000 miles on it. This one has 30-some thousand on it, and it's cleaner than this one. Looks, you know, figuratively cleaner than the one with 16,000. This one has 55,000 miles on it, and the engine case was overfilled with oil, and we pulled out a pint of oil from the bottom of the air box. There was so much oil being pushed up into the engine, into the air box from the engine being overfilled. That filter still functioned. That bike ran fine. No one knew the difference. Couldn't tell a thing. This is the one that came out of the Warhorse. 76,000 miles on the air filter. No real difference. No real difference. 16,000, 76,000. Rider of the motorcycle couldn't tell one bit of loss of power, no change in fuel economy, nothing at all. Now, I did a video probably 2 years ago. We get lots of reports of mouse and, you know, mainly mouse or rat infestations where they climb up into your engine and build nests inside your air boxes. I have yet to find anybody that can tell me why they choose that location. Because obviously it has to smell horrible. It's oil and gasoline in there. I have no idea what would attract mice up in there, but they go to a lot of trouble. They drag a lot of material up in there to build a nest. It certainly can't be easy work, but it happens very frequently. But I did a video where, so people were putting wire screens in front of their snorkels, and that concerned me because I thought that that was really restrictive and would disturb airflow going into the air box. And so I was kind of advised against that. And hang on, I got a message machine. Let me turn this down. But so I was concerned about that. But in the past few years, I've seen so many mouse infestations here because as a courtesy wheel, while we've got your doing suspension here and your bike's torn apart, we'll change the air filter out for another hour's labor, break the tower down and get the air filter out and put a new one in. So we've done a lot of them. Now, this is the great time to stress, I've shown pictures in the past of mouse nest infestations that people have had that they were just unaware of, completely unaware of. And yet their motorcycle still ran fine. So here's an example of one where the owner bought his bike, took it out in the springtime, drove it 1,000 miles, had no idea there was anything wrong with it. It ran fine, didn't smoke, power was good, couldn't find anything wrong. That air filter is covered basically with material. And guy drove the bike fine. Here's another one. Actually has plastic covering the air filter. There's a sock in there. This guy drove his bike. And this is one of the advantages of fuel injection. It compensates for altitude, temperature, air density, the bike will just always run good, and you're not really going to be able to know. Now, these are extreme because that is enough airflow restriction that would show up on a dyno. But, you know, again, if you've lost 10 horsepower and 100, who's really noticing that? Are you out flogging a Goldwing? It's not really a race bike that, you know, that you're going to wind up to redline every time you shift. But we had another one in here recently that we thought was particularly good. This one, the owner drove in. No idea this was in his airbox. As far as he was concerned, the bike ran fine. Didn't notice any change in fuel economy. And he was just changing it because we were in there, so to speak. So if you're in an area or have a garage and stuff where mice are known to be present, then this is obviously happens, and it happens to people. But I want to reiterate the way to do this, and not just be prophylactically paying. It's $500 a whack wrap typically. If you just pulled your bike into Honda and said, change my air filter, it's I think 3.5 hours labor or something, and plus a filter. So you're talking $500. I want to encourage you that for one single time of needlessly changing your air filter, you can buy a nice quality Borescope. Now, they have cheap ones of these. I've tried cheap ones, and cheap not meaning low quality, cheap meaning inexpensive, where they're just the camera on the end of a stick. They are very difficult to get a good view. But I've done a video showing you 2 different approaches to get into either snorkel on the side of the 2018 Plus Honda Goldwing. And what I recommend is each, you know, as often as you want. If you have one of these, you can do it when you change your oil every time. Let's look in the air box. Now, we've actually successfully, with customer bikes here, we look in there. There's no problem, but there's two leaves, or some leaves sitting in there. I've got a long air nozzle that I put on the end of an air hose, and I've stuck it up the snorkel and blown compressed air into it, and blown the leaf out the other snorkel successfully for free, for 2 minutes of time. So, but what you need is an inspection camera to be able to go in there and look at it. And I talked about this one in another video, and I want to reiterate it. This one is the Depstech DS630. And the reason I recommend this is because the tip bends. And that's the reason. You can control the tip. So once you get going into a snorkel, you can guide this as it wiggles through. And once you get it into the air box, the view might be bad, but you can just turn it. Now you're looking across the air box, and you can take really nice pictures inside your air box of your air filter. And it becomes really clear. And then you can, I don't know, keep it, record it, or delete it for that matter. But this, to me, is the smart man's money. So this is about $250. But if you picture over the life of a Goldwing, if you were to follow recommended service intervals every 16,000 miles, you're talking about 6 air filter changes at $500 a piece. Do the math. It's $3,000, or this thing is $250. Even if you doubled the service interval, you're still talking about 3 plus air filter changes at $500 a piece. This tool, if you could look in your air box and your air filter just looks like that, I would never change it. Not in 200,000 miles. There just wouldn't be any reason to replace it. So there's no loss of performance, no loss of fuel economy. And the other thing is, even when we do these things where we pull these out, there is never one speck of dust has gotten past the air filter and into the air box. Not one speck. When we see them horrible, or like this was 76,000 miles. It's no problem at all. You lift this out of the air box, shiny black plastic, no dust, no debris, nothing has ever made it into the engine. And to stress that point, I've been working in the motorcycle industry almost since the Goldwing was invented. And in my time, I have never even heard of, never heard of or seen a Honda Goldwing that failed to start because the engine was worn out from dirt going past the air filter. It has never happened. Not even in the desert. Not in the Southwest. It's never happened. No Goldwing has ever had so much dirt get past the air filter that it wore out the piston rings. The engine didn't have compression. It wouldn't start, and it had to be towed to the dealer, where the dealer said the engine needed to be overhauled. That has never happened, and it never will. So this is something I think you can really save some money if you're smart and prudent, and particularly if you invest in a nice little tool. So anyway, we're calling that the champion, the king of the mountain, and we've saved that here as a trophy. So next time you're at the shop, you can have your picture taken with our premier rat's nest. So anyway, my name's Max. If this video's been helpful to you, if it saves you money, don't forget there's a super thanks button. You can tap that button without joining or being a member or anything, and toss a couple of bucks that supports the channel or supports a YouTuber who gives you information that saves you money. So please subscribe, and I'll be back with more great content soon.